The air was heavy with silence. A crowd stood outside a tomb carved into the side of a rocky hill. Only moments earlier, Jesus had shouted into the darkness of that tomb with a command that stunned everyone who heard it. "Lazarus, come out." For a moment, nothing happened. People held their breath. Some stared into the dark entrance of the tomb, while others whispered to one another in confusion. Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. Everyone knew that. Then suddenly, something moved inside the tomb. A faint cloud of dust drifted out from the darkness. The burial cloth shifted. The crowd stepped back. No one spoke. Something was happening inside that tomb. But what could possibly lead to a moment like this? How could a man who had been dead and buried for 4 days suddenly move again? If you want to understand how this incredible moment came to be, stay with us. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss powerful stories like this. Now let's go back to the beginning. In the small village of Bethany lived 3 siblings, Mary, Martha, and their brother Lazarus. Their home was known as a place of warmth and hospitality. Friends were always welcome there, and whenever Jesus passed through the region, he often stayed with them. But one day, Lazarus became very sick. At first, Mary and Martha hoped it was only a passing illness. They stayed by his side, bringing him water, wiping his forehead, and trying to comfort him as best they could. But the sickness did not leave. Each day Lazarus became weaker. His breathing grew heavy, and his strength slowly faded. The sisters began to worry. They knew someone who could help. Jesus. They believed that if Jesus came, everything would be all right. They had seen him heal the sick before. They had seen him do things no one else could do. So they sent a messenger with an urgent message. "Go find Jesus," they said. "Tell him that the one he loves is sick." The messenger began his journey, traveling across dusty roads and hills in search of Jesus and his disciples. Back in Bethany, Mary and Martha remained beside their brother. They waited. Every sound outside made them look toward the door, hoping it might be Jesus arriving. Meanwhile, the messenger continued his search. After some time, he climbed a hill and looked out across the landscape. In the distance, he finally saw a group of men walking together. It was Jesus and his disciples. Relief filled his heart. He hurried down the hill and approached Jesus. Breathing heavily from the journey, he delivered the message. "Lord, the one you love is sick." Jesus listened carefully, but instead of rushing immediately toward Bethany, he calmly said that this sickness would not end in death, but would reveal the glory of God. The messenger had done his part, but back in Bethany, Mary and Martha were still waiting. Family members had gathered around the house. Friends came to comfort them as Lazarus grew weaker. People began asking the same question again and again. Has Jesus arrived yet? But the answer was always the same. No. The hours passed. Lazarus struggled to breathe. Mary held his hand while Martha tried to comfort him. But eventually, the moment came that they feared the most. Lazarus died. Grief filled the house. Mary wept openly. Martha tried to stay strong, but the pain was overwhelming. Their brother was gone. Soon, the burial preparations began. In those days, the body was carefully prepared before burial. The men gently washed Lazarus' body. Then they wrapped him in long strips of linen cloth. Layer after layer of cloth was wrapped around his body. Fragrant spices were placed between the cloths to honor the dead. Mary and Martha watched with broken hearts. It was painful to see their brother lying there so still. The man who once laughed with them, who spoke with them, who shared meals with them, now lay silent beneath the burial cloths. They could hardly believe that under those layers of cloth was their brother. When the preparations were finished, several men lifted the body and carried Lazarus toward the tomb. The tomb was carved into the side of a rocky hill outside the village. Friends and neighbors followed behind them in sorrow. Mary and Martha walked slowly among the mourners, their hearts heavy with grief. Step by step, the men carried Lazarus to the entrance of the tomb. Soon a large stone would seal it closed. Meanwhile, far away from Bethany, Jesus and his disciples were resting for the night around a small fire. The flames flickered as they prepared a simple meal. One of the disciples asked, "Rabbi, should we go to Bethany now to see Lazarus?" Jesus looked at them and said something that confused them. "Our friend Lazarus sleeps." The disciples misunderstood. "If he is sleeping," one of them said, "then he will get better." But Jesus was speaking about something else. After a moment, he spoke plainly. "Lazarus is dead." The disciples were silent. Then Jesus said something unexpected. But for your sake, I am glad I was not there, so that you may believe. Come, let us go to him. One of the disciples, Thomas, spoke up with determination.
Let us go with him, so that we may die with him.
So they began the journey to Bethany. By the time Jesus arrived, Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. When Martha heard that Jesus was approaching the village, she hurried out to meet him. Her voice carried both sorrow and faith. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Jesus looked at her with compassion and said, Your brother will rise again. Martha answered, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. But Jesus was about to reveal something greater. I am the resurrection and the life, he said. Whoever believes in me will live, even though they die. Soon Mary came as well. When she saw Jesus, she fell at his feet and began to cry. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Seeing her weeping, and the people around her weeping, Jesus was deeply moved. And then something remarkable happened. Jesus wept. The crowd whispered to one another, See how much he loved him. Then Jesus walked toward the tomb. It was a cave with a large stone covering the entrance. Roll the stone away, Jesus said. The people hesitated, but eventually the stone was moved. The tomb stood open. Everyone watched. Then Jesus lifted his voice and called out with authority, Lazarus, come out. For a moment, nothing happened. Then suddenly, movement appeared inside the dark tomb. But before we see what happened next, take a moment to subscribe to this channel for more faith-inspiring stories like this one. Let's grow together as we share these powerful moments from Scripture. Now, slowly, a figure began to emerge from the darkness. Jesus had broken the hold of death over him, and Lazarus was leaving that grave behind by whatever means he could. And out he came. The people gasped. Some covered their mouths in disbelief. Others stepped back in fear and wonder. The air itself seemed charged with awe. The Son of God had spoken, and even death had no choice but to obey. A man who had been dead for 4 days was alive again. Jesus then said to the crowd, Unbind him, and let him go. The men quickly began removing the burial cloths. Mary and Martha ran forward and embraced their brother, tears of joy streaming down their faces. The crowd, once frozen in shock, began to cheer softly, overwhelmed by the miracle they had witnessed. And there, in the midst of awe and jubilation, Mary and Martha held their brother close, knowing that what they had seen was nothing short of divine. Because when the Son of God speaks, even death has no choice but to obey. Many of the people who had witnessed this miracle believed in him. Their hearts were opened, and their faith in Jesus grew stronger that day. If this story touched your heart, let us know in the comments. How did it make you feel? We would love to hear from you.